New Zealand's Rima. News Update.
In this update, there are unconfirmed reports at least one person has been killed in today's Christchurch earthquake. A body has been found in the RSA in Wakefield Avenue, and a building has fallen on a car in Riccarton Road. Parts of the Christchurch Cathedral have fallen down after the latest earthquake. Our reporter Scarlett Svitanovic says there's dust covering everything in the central city.
Buildings have literally just collapsed. People have all gathered in a park in the middle of the square. The cathedral has apparently, parts of it have fallen down. Some of our colleagues were sitting outside the cathedral when it happened, and the spire has fallen down. A whole wall of the cathedral has fallen. It's absolutely chaos.
I was sitting at my desk upstairs in the apartment working, and the quake hit, and so I just held my desk and the bookcase behind me so it wouldn't fall down until it stopped, and then I ran downstairs, grabbed my apartment keys and my phone, and outside down the external stairs out onto the street, and stayed out on the street. Shaky, wishing it hadn't happened, of course, and it's hard to understand why. We feel that we got away with it the first time, and we absolutely don't feel that way this time. It's so much worse for everybody.
I knew at the time of the quake, everybody that went through that quake just knew what the damage and the consequences of it would be. It's certainly the worst earthquake that I'd felt. And immediately came into town, had to hitchhike into town. I mean, it was an awful situation for people. The guy that gave me a ride, he was desperate to get hold of his wife, his mother, to find out whether they were safe, and the cell phone connections were down. So we went through that phase, came into town, talked to, went immediately to the Pinegould Guinness building, and that gave me a real sense of the scale of this disaster. 40 people trapped inside. And the wonderful thing, I was standing talking to for an hour with a man next to me. His wife was inside. He hadn't heard from her, no text messages. You know, he really didn't know what to think. I rang him yesterday and he said, fantastic, she walked out last night. They pulled her out. So there are really positive things that are happening here. But the overall picture is one of a huge tragedy.
It just started when I was in the middle of the road. It was just like a sudden bang. And power from it was just unbelievable. I fell over and I physically couldn't get back up again. I couldn't believe how loud it was, and the road was coming rippling like water towards me. I was just seeing big waves just of the actual tar seal in the road coming towards me. The scaffolding of the job where I was supposed to be, where I had walked away from to go and check on another job, that scaffolding, I would have been on the second top level of it. So I would have been about 3 or 4 stories up, and it just came out into the street, the whole scaffold and the front of the building and behind the scaffold as well. I stood up and I looked down the street and I could just see buildings crumbling and falling out into the street onto cars, and people running to try and get away, buildings collapsing on people, and I was just standing in the middle of the street and they were just going down like dominoes coming up the street. It's just looking south down Manchester Street. It's just unbelievable. I just ran in, well, not inside, but ran up to the job where I was supposed to be going, which I was right outside of. And there were some other boys that were inside there. They came running out and said, don't go in there, it's falling down. And then I yelled just checked everyone was all right, and we all yelling and screaming everywhere. It's just chaos, people. And got all the boys, and I yelled at them, because you had to yell to communicate. You just couldn't hear anything. And telling all the boys to get down the road, because one of the buildings I'd seen fall over, I thought was the job where 6 of our other boys were. And so we all sprinted down there to try and get them all, checked that they were all right, and turns out their building was all right. And the one next door was the one I saw fall onto cars and people, and we just started digging. There was just people everywhere. There was a girl buried, just her head and shoulders were sticking out. And I pulled all some bricks off her, and there was a big bit of timber that was pinning her legs down. And there was concrete all on that as well. And I couldn't lift it. I had to call over. Everybody had just fanned out everywhere, getting everybody. I had to call over a whole lot of people. We had to get about 6 of us to lift up the beam and drag her out.
And what condition was she in?
Her arm would have been broken in several places.
Yeah.
And
how was she?
She couldn't feel her legs. Looking at the pictures last night, I just felt sick. I just felt really sick.
You were that close.
It's even... Yeah.
Hello, I'm Davina William and welcome to our new season of Nzone Focus. Well, we certainly didn't ever think that our first program would need to cover such devastation as we've just witnessed. So we're going to devote the whole of our program to stories from Christchurch, and we'll be with you for a longer duration than usual, 1 hour. We'll be meeting some of the many people whose lives have been changed forever by the earthquake. We talk to people who put their lives on the line to help others. And we'll also be finding out how church communities are coping around Christchurch. All of these stories were filed by our Rima News team, who spent several days down in Christchurch putting together stories for this program and also for our radio news. Two of the team are with me now, Kathy Jenke and Alan Lee. How are you both feeling now that you're back?
It's quite strange because it's so intense down there. You're in a city that's wrecked. There are armoured vehicles on the streets. You pass through police cordons to get anywhere. If you're out in the suburbs, there's liquefaction and wrecked houses and closed shops. It's so intense that actually coming back to Auckland and to home, it feels slightly surreal. It feels like this isn't the real place and that the real things are happening in Christchurch.
And what about you, Kathy?
I feel quite jaded still, I think, and I'm processing. I think I haven't yet processed what we've seen. The days were full and seeing so much and talking to lots and lots of people. And yeah, it's still ticking there. Feel a little bit weepy sometimes. And today, interesting, coming into work and the building shook a little bit, you know, just the wind blowing a little creak, and it's immediate, a bit of a jump, and heard a siren outside, and it was like, oh. So, yeah, I'm still in Christchurch.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. After the break, we'll have the second of our reports about how people in the suburbs fared, and we also talk to Christchurch Mayor Bob Parker. That's next.